Hello everyone and welcome to our webinar today. Today we have Connect Software with us and they will be presenting on In-House Payroll Gives You Total Control. And we have, for our presenters today, we have Tony Piccolo and David Diebert. They will do the presentation today. We just have a couple of housekeeping tips for you. First, we do record this and all of our webinars, so if you are unable to attend the full length, we will have this recording on our website later this afternoon. And also, if you would like to share it with anyone in your organization, you are free to do so. And secondly, if you have any questions, feel free to go ahead and put them in the question box, and we will get them called out at the end of the presentation. So now, without further ado, I will turn it over to Tony. Tony, and he will start the presentation.
All right, very good. Thank you, Angie. Well, good morning, everyone. On behalf of Innovia and Connect Software, I want to thank all of you for taking time to attend this webinar. It's a topic that has been getting a lot more interest as of late, where we have customers or end users that are looking at Microsoft Dynamics NAV as a potential ERP system, and to handle their financials, but also handling other aspects of their operations. And in this case, we're going to be talking about in-house payroll. So some of you may be considering, NAV as a new platform, and you're wanting to understand all the things that can come along with it. Maybe some of you are current NAV users, and maybe you weren't aware that payroll could be run on NAV, or you're outsourcing, and maybe you're not entirely happy with the results you're getting there. So whichever way you've been coming to us, what we want to spend our time together today talking about is what's possible with the platform, and then through your questions and feedback, maybe gather some other topics that will help you get more out of your value or your investment in Microsoft Dynamics NAV. So let's kind of get into the guts of it and talk about payroll processing and what that looks like. So for the time that we have together today, these are the things that we're going to cover. We're going to talk about payroll processing in general. We'll also examine some of the common payment processing methods that are out there today. We'll discuss why businesses choose to outsource. There's good reasons for doing that, but also we'd like to talk to you about and share with you, maybe some reasons where you may want to consider, doing payroll in-house, or maybe bringing it back in-house. We'll have a short demonstration of the Vision Payroll application that works with Microsoft Dynamics NAV. That'll be done by David Diebert, the product manager for Vision Payroll. And from that, right after that demo, we'd like to, maybe do a short Q&A, maybe some questions you've got, either through what I'll be covering or what David will be sharing, and then we'll wrap it up with a couple extra slides at the end, and get you out of here, well on time. So that's what we got going for the webinar today. A little bit of background on Connect Software. We've been around for a while. We've been doing NAV-based or NAV-based payroll for right around 20 years almost. Some of you may have heard of us via our past or older names in the old days, Vision Pay, or maybe Serenic. Serenic Software is a sister company that we work with, but Connect Software was once called Serenic Canada, so we rebranded this part of the business, and also rebranded the product that used to be called Serenic HCM. It's now called Vision Payroll, and has been now for the last year. So the point of this slide is really to say, basically this is something that we've grown up with the industry. We actually used to have our application on the Navision CD years back. So we've been a part of the Microsoft environment, so for our entire history. And so as far as payroll goes, I think, next to employing folks and trying to make money and be profitable, I think payroll is probably one of the most important things that any company does. As I talk with folks that that various companies that are using our product, or maybe they're using other services, the thing that I hear a lot is that gee, payroll is complex, it's hard, and it's one of those things that we realize we have to do, of course. And I do agree that payroll is complex. And if you look at just the the book definition, complex means that it's going to be something that consists of many or different parts. And what we find happening is that there is a growing complexity that happens for any business that is getting larger. They're bringing in more different types of folks in different jobs. They maybe have different pay plans they have to consider. They've got employees in multiple locations, and then there's all the laws, regulations, and all the other things that go along to contribute to the complexity. So, we've all been doing payroll. We've been experiencing payroll for decades. So a lot of this, probably isn't new, but payroll is complex, but it's not complicated. So, I mean, there's all the issues and all the things that go with payroll are all known, and they can be addressed and handled quite simply. And there's lots of comments out there about what simple means or what complexity means. But I don't know about you, but I was raised in an Italian family, so it's too hard. Was never a valid excuse in my family. So there really isn't anything that that's being done today that can't be handled with when it comes to payroll, with the power that is built into Microsoft Dynamics NAV. Payroll, of course, like any other business process, has its own trip or travel or cycle, and it's kind of like painting the Golden Gate Bridge, isn't it? As soon as you get one payroll done, you're doing it again, and so there's various steps and procedures that come into play, regardless of the processing methods. You still have to get time and data entered, has to be verified and approved. You got to do the calculations. And then at some point, you're going to make the decision to maybe print your own checks, or send a file off to have the checks and deposits done somewhere else. There's still the need to get everything posted to the proper journal, so you got to get the information into the system, and that's where the beauty of having in-house payroll and having payroll be part of NAV. It's all tied to the financials. It really, Vision Payroll or the payroll application becomes part of the NAV platform. So it's all seamless. It's all tied together. And so all of that accounting that needs to take place becomes very, very simple and very repeatable. Whether you're paying folks every 2 weeks or twice a month or once a week, it's all relatively simple process. So we know that there are various means of getting payroll done. There's some companies choose to outsource their payroll processing with a service provider. Others choose to insource. What we're finding out as we talk with customers, that have used us, or they've come back from having payroll outsourced for some time, they're finding out that the demands on the internal staff really don't change very much. In fact, I would argue that maybe 90 to 95% of the work that needs to be done behind the firewall is still done, and a lot of it has to do with getting the time entry done, getting the data collection, getting the approvals done before any action takes place. And so there are common dependencies to any approach that you choose. At the core is having accurate and good data to start with, and so making sure that it's complete and accurate. Making sure that you have current employee records. And then, as with any business, there's the whole regulatory and tax compliance things that need to be done. Those are things that are easily taken care of, within the NAV platform and the information that's provided, along with Vision Payroll. And with a lot of the moves that were taking place maybe in the last decade to outsource, we are seeing a pendulum kind of swinging back. Again, as some companies are reevaluating prior outsourcing decisions and beliefs. So I don't know, I'm old enough to remember the old Rolling Stone campaign, the whole perception versus reality thing. They were obviously trying to promote the magazine, but really, there are this model can be applied to the payroll business, and for folks that are considering outsourced payroll service, there's usually some reasons that contribute to the decision to do that. The belief that it's cost effective, it's cheaper. You don't have to have a separate team doing things. The payroll is streamlined somehow. Everything's taken care of within the organization. All the confidentiality is preserved. If something goes down, everything will still run. And often there's choices being made to work with a provider that that has an experience in doing payroll processing. And I think if you look at what's really true, and if it pertains to the NAV platform, your in-house staff is still going to be engaged regardless of any method. What you are going to have, though, by bringing a payroll in-house is full control over the process and any costs or that are associated with it. You can run payroll, every day, every hour, every week, every month. It's not going to cost you anymore. The enhanced payroll delivery, you can actually provide an equal, if not better, experience with an in-source solution, with the capabilities that come along with Microsoft Dynamics NAV. Confidentiality, you can provide the same, if not better, controls behind your own firewall. So most businesses have a lot of those things in place already. Business continuity plans really are certainly a reality, but most businesses have some kind of a system already in place in the event that something goes down. And we agree that experience and expertise is vital. You want to work with a company that has that knows their way around payroll and all the challenges and all the things that are associated with it. So just to kind of summarize a little bit here, so as we hear from customers that are using NAB based payroll today, or Vision Payroll, they've realized that they may have been paying too much for payroll. They weren't having full control over their payroll processing. It wasn't their payroll processing provider wasn't integrated with their current ERP system, so that made a little bit of a challenge for getting everything back into the financials. Any kind of analysis or reporting was a chore. So, if any of those things, kind of resonate with you or apply to you, we would ask that you may want to consider, taking a look at NAB-based payroll, potentially for the first time, or maybe as part of an evaluation that you're going through as you're looking at Microsoft Dynamics NAV. What you're going to find is that you'll be able to process payroll for much less than maybe what you would with a traditional service provider today. We talked a little bit about having full control over your company's payroll processing. You're able to do it on your schedule. You don't have to deposit a check with a provider, 3 to 5 days in advance. You're going to have full integration with the rest of Dynamics NAV and your financial reporting and systems. You'll have at your fingertips all of the analysis capabilities that come with Dynamics NAV, as well as the Microsoft Office suite. So being able to put stuff out to Excel and run reports out of there. Employee self-service, we hear a lot about that, the ability to, go out and, print pay stubs or have employees enter information, the name, address, that kind of stuff. That's all fully capable with Microsoft Dynamics NAV. And then all the annual tax updates, that comes along, with the software, as well as some fundamental human resources functionality that we take advantage of. Again, as a result of being a part of the Dynamics NAV platform. So that's kind of a very, quick, rough overview into some of the things that surround NAV-based payroll. What we'd like to do now is actually give you a chance to take a look at what the software looks like. And so, David, I'm going to pass the baton to you and allow you to bring up the software.
Thanks, Tony.
Yep.
I'll bring up my screen here, and we'll get into the NAV base. So for those of you who have seen Microsoft Dynamics NAV, you shouldn't notice too much different. We do have a role center based system, just like Dynamics NAV, we have several different role centers to choose from. But if we jump out to the department menu, you can see the entire suite here, including the 3 menu items that belong to us or that we integrate with. And so on the role center, there are several different options, including the web client. So anything you're going to see in a minute is, if you keep in mind, it's fully web enabled, just like the rest of Microsoft Dynamics NAV. So if I open up my web browser and I go to this client, as a payroll administrator, I get to see pretty much what I am going to see in the software through my browser. So an employee card and all the behind the scenes information that comes with an employee card. We also have the ability to look at this viewing through employee self-service, which I do have in another database here. So if you open up a different user comes in, they're going to have a different experience when they're connecting to the web client through the employee self-service module, or profile, I should call it. It's not really a module, it's just available. And you can show or hide as much of the information as you need to. You're very bare bones here for an employee. If they're a reviewer, they get to see some time review. They can enter some time sheets. They can see their own record and possibly modify some of the fields on their own records. They get to see some of their vacation balances and sick balances. They get to print their paychecks from here. So going home, printing their paychecks, you don't really ever have to print them on a printer anymore. Just tell them that they're available and they can be sent a link to come straight out of here. So depending who you are is really depending on what you see. And we also have a full Knowledge Center suite with all the Vision Payroll help files available for the customers as well. But in the software, you're getting in for the day, you've got your payroll administrator role, you've got a few things to check over, maybe you've got a few employees that you may need to action, so you can manage a list of a few employees that it's not the entire list of people. You get access to your Outlook calendar and your inbox and things. You get your notifications, which is a Dynamics NAV feature. We can show our notifications here, and I can just action those right here. So employee card needs to check the birth date. So I can just double click it, open the employee card. And from here, I can just go double check the birth date and make an alteration, and pretty much done with that. I can store those down on the side here as a audit trail. So if I look at the note, I can see that note was there. I can keep it there forever. I can move it. I can change it. I can store Word documents out here on the employee cards as well. Their resumes, their information relating to their work, all gets backed up in the database. I can also see warnings on these employee cards. So all that, really just coming from my home screen, I'm able to action a few things. So here it says the job title is a required field. And it's not a required field for payroll to calculate, but we have what's called user required fields. So I've made this a required field. I can come back and look at the card, and sure enough, it's empty. But I notice over here in the address field, somebody goofed and put the job title in the address field, so I can just move it over here, and I can validate this employee. And what's going to happen is they're becoming a valid employee. So I've addressed a few issues without really doing too much other than coming from my main screen. And once I'm done with these notifications, I can remove them and just keep the ones that I haven't actioned or maybe need more information. Maybe I have to call John and talk to him about his health plan. So those kind of things can be done off the main menu here. But once we get rolling, then we're going into, I'll get to the main part of this system here, and we'll just show kind of a high overview of all the different areas that we can that we touch on in the software. So our human resources section, we're covering things like positions which have user-definable qualifications attached to them. Those qualifications then get attached to applicants as they come into the system. And then those qualifications then get matched up with the position that they're applying for via what's called a job requisition. And that would be sort of a job posting would be another way to do it. So when you're looking at these requisitions, they are tied to a position. The position has qualifications, and so does the applicant. So when you can look at through the applicants, you'll be able to see a list of all your applicants for the position. How did they score with all these different qualifications? They have some office experience, and they're formerly a production assistant or something, and so they meet that criteria, but they're not fluent in French and they have no accounting experience, so their score is kind of low. And you can get a list of all the applicants and the employees within the company who also applied for this job, and sort of match up employees and applicants all together. And we also deal with the absences a little bit separate here as well. For those individuals who maybe don't have access to payroll, but we want them to kind of manage the employee absences and sort of some of the policies surrounding that, we can keep that separated as well. And we have a bunch of analysis views out here for a product or an area called extended fields. So some systems don't have enough fields, or you want to add some fields, but you don't have to call a developer every time. We have extended fields where you can actually make your own fields, and they're wizard based. So when you create them, you can decide how the employee is going to fill out that particular one. And then you get to look at them through what's called an extended field analysis. So I can look at employee benefits and just have a quick idea who's got what dental plan, who's got what kind of, who's got beneficiaries assigned to them and who doesn't, and it gives you a quick overview of that. We also can do it in a multiple level. So when you're looking at any of these items, applicants, job requisitions, positions, I'm going to take employees in this case, and I just want to see if there's anybody out there who can travel. So I'm just going to look at some information about passports, and I'm also going to look at information about training. And I just want to see if there's somebody who has technical training and who has a US passport, and there is somebody there, and I just have to click on it and know that it's John Roberts. So maybe I'll send him to this conference that we've got coming up. And that can be done with any one of these benefits, as well as all the different combinations that come into play here. So we have a dental plan and a US passport, so they can travel a bit more safer maybe than somebody who doesn't. So those kind of a thing. And again, those are all user-definable fields in extended fields where we are actually picking the values. So for company event, for example, I've got some activity categories here. I can say, what kind of values do I want this employee to be able to assign to an individual? Well, about a company event, all we really care about is, do we notify them? Are they even interested? And are they willing to volunteer if it's company barbecue or something like that? And that's it. So when you're attaching those kinds of things, I'm going to jump over to an employee. When you're attaching those kinds of things to an employee, you are actually only able to choose those various options. I don't get to manually choose anything, but I do get to add some free-form comments on some of these. And so with the filtering that's available in Dynamics NAV, we are easily able to kind of classify these. We can report on them. We can do a quick overview of what an individual is, or put one individual against another and compare the classifications. We've got all kinds of other information to store here as well. And for security reasons, we like to keep these things in different areas. So first of all, the employee card itself, pretty self-explanatory. It's got to have a name and address, information about the individual. We store manager number here because we're generating an org chart using Visio. So Microsoft Visio can do an org chart, a nice org chart for us. We've also got some various NAV type fields here that allow us to add more information. So for example, this EEO field over here is a regulatory field. So in some of them, we have the ability to add more fields. So the advanced tab. We also have some fields here, marital status, where we don't, because there's some regulatory rules behind some of these fields. But for most of them, you have the same NAV ability to just quickly add a field, and it's available instantly for the rest of the users. We can just say test, and it's available instantly to pick from. Okay, so all these things are user defined. So when you get down into the weeds, you may see that there's a field that you don't you're not sure about, or you can rename it and change it to whatever you need it to be, because it is Dynamics NAV. And again, we have those user definable fields if you don't see one that you like. They're available here. And we also use the same sort of shortcuts and everything as well. So on the side here, you can see there's quick information, like I showed earlier, the fact boxes, they call these. And we can get a quick link into the rates. What kind of rates do they have? But that information is also available elsewhere on the different parts of the menu. So there's a good chance that you don't have to hunt and peck for where this information is. You can actually also search up here for something. If you don't know what it is, maybe you just don't know where rates are stored, you can just come up to the search and there you go, there's the rates up here. But the same information is available without actually opening an employee card, so there's some less clicks involved, and you're getting up to the ribbon. Same ribbon up at the top here is specific to the individual you're selected on, and you can see over on the right-hand side, the fact boxes are also changing as I move down. It's specific to the individual. So you can just do a quick pass over to see if you're seeing what you're looking for, including some of these extended fields and pictures and notes and things like that are all still available without really opening the card. There's lots of other information we get to store. I won't be able to get to all of it today, but I will highlight a few things. Relatives we're storing here as well with Social Security numbers so that we can access information for the Affordable Care Act, which we do have available up here with the year-based filter on the top here, so I can see what their status was in 2015, and we can see they just got this around this third month of 2015, but when it comes to 2018, they've really got the whole gambit. All the months are covered. We're doing e-filing for that, as well as all your W-2s and T4s and Canadian and the US state reporting, new hire, SUTA. All those things are all covered because they're regulatory. We've also got information that we can store in these other areas up here for miscellaneous articles, things with serial numbers, for example, maybe a license plate for a car, and file attachments is available here. You can drag and drop a picture of that item, see what it looks like. Also, some notes are available in case you want more information on that particular item. Confidential information, same sort of idea. These are codes and descriptions. Use them how you need them. Stock options, again, we've got the ability to drag and drop. So if I shrink that a little bit and I go into my stock options, maybe I have a signed stock option agreement. I just want to drag it over and drop it on. And it's available inside the backup of the software. So when your system's backing it up, the documents as well going with that. Don't have to worry about losing those on. You can store them on a hard drive outside the system if you're worried about space in your SQL database, for example. So there are a couple of options to keep those documents safe. Absences, again, we talked about. The full gambit of filters are available. You can do some reporting and some analysis views like I showed earlier with extended fields. Those types of things are also available, what's called a matrix window. Those are available outside for absences as well. The employee's picture, which you saw, qualifications, which we sort of hit on the math behind it, but the qualifications are also user definable so that when you're picking them, if I want to say, okay, do they have any interior design experience, I get to pick what I want to assign those values. And if there's nothing there, I don't pick it. And things will start to appear if I chose to allow those types of things to be picked for that particular qualification. And then those get mapped up to the position. So that's where the math comes from on the position itself, tied to here as well. We also have experience for potential non-work related type stuff, training classes, things like that, start and end dates. Again, file attachments is available. References for individuals who are applicants maybe, and they come over as employees, those will copy over. So there's no use for worrying about duplicate entry. Lots of this information is on an applicant as well and gets copied over. We've got affiliations. If somebody maybe is in the ROTC or something and you want to track that, with some information or documentation. We also have the jobs that these people have applied for can be stored, as well as the positions that they've held in the past. We've got some individuals here with multiple positions, I think, but I don't know if I have any data to show particularly. But there's position history, so you'll be able to do a create, start and end dates will be here, what position they had before, how long was it, what was the salary, and there's some budgetary information as well assigned to positions. And we'll get into the pay control and some more information about the regulatory items up here. Pay controls in our world are very flexible. So I'm going to just run through a payroll journal because we are getting about 15 minutes to go here before we ask for some questions. But I want to show you what the payroll really can do. And so we'll go into a batch here. Collecting time is fairly straightforward using a time clock or even paper. We have imports that you can use off the main menus. We have the journal imports right out of the box. We've also got timesheets, as you may have seen from the employee self-service that I was showing. You can enter your timesheets over there. Anyways, the big difference is these are journals that are just like Dynamics NAV. We're stacking all the information in here from all these different sources, and they're just going to continue to get stacked here until you're ready to process. And you can run some quick reports to see, right out of NAV, but you have to also remember that NAV has Microsoft behind it, so it's going to have integrations to Microsoft Excel and Word and things like that. So you can get simple totals from the NAV reports. You can tie it to third-party products like Jet reports, and you can also use the print and send feature to take things right into Excel if you're more comfortable there. If you want to cross-check information, you can do it in a program that's more comfortable for you. And of course, now we've got the full capabilities of Excel at your disposal. And that goes for any of these batches. And we're batching data here, so you can have multiple batches going at the same time. I've got one calculated here already, which I'm going to run through. And we have the capability of doing multiple types of departments. We have multiple departments. We have multiple jurisdictions for split state taxes and things like that. And our pay controls are everything that you want to show on a stub. It can be an hour, a dollar, a number of weeks. It can be any number that you basically want to display on the check stub. So I've got some examples here. And if I calculate a batch like this, you'll have some options and you can actually choose. I'm going to calculate this individual. If I just want to do one, you get to choose which cycles you want to do, and you can have multiple cycles here, which I'll get to. We also have a calc trace feature, but I want to show you the flexibility of the pay controls because it helps with a lot of the complexities of checking with a service provider, seeing if they can do this. Can you do this? Can you do this? Well, with a formula like I'm about to show you, when you're calculating an individual, these formulas are built with baby steps, just like you would write down on a piece of paper, x plus y divided by z equals 0 plus 2. You can do all those types of formulas because we use what's called method steps, which are little baby steps of a formula, and we're assembling the data from history, from rate fields over the system, from brackets that are regulated by our own staff. We're sending you these tax updates every year, so we're using fixed data that way. And these little formulas are easily manipulated. We have a long list of these available method steps, and the list goes on and on and on, and you can do anything from rounding to doing something by the employee's age, rates, expiry dates of the extended fields that I showed you earlier. Those all can be used to trigger a calculation. And so it may seem daunting, but it's also can be very simple. It can just be pulling a rate right off an employee card. There's nothing to that. It's $12 an hour, so it's 8 times 12. The formula is done. So it could be very simple to very complex. And as you can see here, we've got some overtime, vacation time, various days entered for regular time. And what we do have here for this individual, we've got 2 different departments showing up. So we've got regular time for the admin and production department, And what ends up happening here is the regular earnings are also splitting by the department. And if we go further down into the employer expenses, I can actually split those if I want to. I can come into any one of these pay controls. Social Security is my example here. I can tell the system to take whatever you saw splitting for my regular hours, do the same thing by dimension. So that when I say okay to that, I can calculate this individual, and what's going to end up happening is this Social Security control is going to get split up, and it's going to stay split up by department. So you can track all your costs now by department, project, up to 8 different attributes can be assigned to these things. So I've got area here of 70, I've got departments, different projects. Those can now be tracked individually, and it can be activated on any one of these pay controls. I also have the ability to do multiple state taxing. So if I look at Mary Dempsey, I'm just going to show you, she's got North Carolina and Georgia hours, which translate into North Carolina and Georgia earnings, which then calculate the individual taxes for each individual state. And there's a reciprocal agreement here, so Georgia kicks back the $24 that it was going to charge you and gives it back. And notice that it's tagged to the $450 that North Carolina is taxing you on. So it's comparing what would you have been charged in that state, and it's just kicking it back to you. In this case, it would have charged you more, so it's giving you the whole $24 back. So there's complicated math in there, but the setup is very easy. And a lot of the times once payroll is set up, you don't have to go back in here and fiddle with it much. Okay, so once the payroll is done, and I'm not the only one who knows this, but the complexity in payroll is trying to figure out, is everything correct? And I think that's what most people spend their time on. And you're doing that regardless whether you're going to a service provider or keeping the payroll in-house. You still have to check and see, let's see what's everybody's net pay, for example. Maybe you're not sure if you've got an individual here that potentially is looking a bit odd to you. So you can actually do any kind of filters that you want using pay controls. Maybe I just want to look at net pay. And there isn't any. That's pretty weird. So something's already wrong. So you can just calculate, and you can go and have a look and see what's going on. I'm just going to run the calculate on that. We can go through the system and see what's going on. And the system's going to be able to figure it out based on your hours and earnings, what's going on. You saw some warnings come up. Maybe you can check calc errors and see if there's a problem there. And it's just warning me that these individuals are in another batch. So I'd be careful about when you print their year-to-dates, because they may cross over or what have you. But for the most part, you're easily able to see if something's wrong. So if I look at their earnings, I can filter on their earnings, and if one of them jumps out at me as being sort of fishy, I can just go back to their history and look and see, okay, well, what was the NetHill's history before? Let's have a look at their earnings from the past, and then you can just do a quick filter and see that their earnings were so-and-so before, and kind of tie them all without leaving the journal. And then really the rest of it is simple, because the system's going to be able to do direct deposits. So you're going to print your checks from here. You're going to do your direct deposits. You're going to avoid an export. So the system is going to actually take into account what's going on with the bank, and it's going to be able to do the direct deposit file exactly the way the bank needs it. We can run a transmit function, which will open the website. They will actually upload the file for you to the bank, and then you can close it and tell the system that it worked properly, and then you're going to be able to still void before that. As long as the bank hasn't got the information, you can void this batch. You can go all the way back and make a correction if you need. But in this case, everything's fine, so you keep on going. You can void the checks all the way back to the beginning at this point. Once the bank finds out what's going on, though, as soon as you transmit, the batch will be locked. But that can happen, 5 minutes before due date. It doesn't have to be 3 days before your payroll is due. You can start making corrections, several minutes before your bank needs this file. So that's another great thing about in-house. And of course, there's reports that you can run in some posting errors, some posting reports. And once that's all finished, it's really just a few extra steps from here. You're printing your stubs, you're printing your checks. We have multiple types of information here. We've got different bank types, so computer checks, we've got electronic payments mixed in the same batch. We've got biweekly and weekly people mixed in the same batch. We've got multiple employers in the same batch, potentially. Information about jobs and job tasks, that goes over to the job module, so you can bill out time. All these integrations are wonderful. So at the end of the day, you're posting your payroll, you're getting back to history. So when you're going through and looking through your past payrolls, you can just open up your Navigate. You can have a look at their past paychecks. You can print those stubs from here. So if you ever employee complains or loses one or lost one in the wash, they can go into the portal and do it. They can request you to do it. You're going to get a snapshot of that individual's pay stub or check, how it is. You can go back all the way to the payroll ledger, which stores the entire journal, just the way we saw it a minute ago. But at the same time, we have NAV here, so we can use their Navigate feature and look at where did that go in the GL. And boom, we're in the GL in just a couple of seconds. We can go right through to the resource ledger. How did that affect the job module? Well, the resources were flagged here. The costs for those resources were tagged to their jobs, those types of things. We've got information over here, and once you're done your payroll, you can send it over to liabilities, the liabilities to AP. So at the end of the day, you need information to go to the vendor, for example. So on our employers, we can store these vendors, and the list goes on and on for integration points. So here we've got the federal link to one of the vendors, and that vendor, I can navigate to that vendor from here. It's going to open the vendor card. So the ability of having these inside payroll is phenomenal, because I can see this invoice was created by payroll over on my AP department side, and we're going to cut them a check on our next run for $5,000. And I didn't even leave this main screen. I can do it from anywhere, an employee, an employer. The Navigate functionality is amazing in Dynamics NAB, as well as the filtering. So I wouldn't dwell too much on reports, but of course we get third-party products like Jet Reports, which use Excel. We get our own Excel as well built into NAV. So that is essentially payroll in a nutshell. You're doing a lot of the work already as a service provider, and now you get to do that same work, hopefully a lot easier, because you're seeing real data. It's not a snapshot or a past, you're not asking somebody else for that data. It's the data that you use every day, and you can finish with that. We also have some reports you can design yourself without a developer, and have a look at various data in different ways. I've got the same report here looking at a 941, looking at some W-2 totals, and we can print those from here, as well as, of course, save them anywhere we want. And I'm just going to print one for 2017 just to see, let's see what my W-2 for 2017 looks like. There's so all my box totals with my W-3 totals across the bottom. I didn't even have to run my W-2s. I can design a report like that. But of course, we have the full regulatory capability here of generating a SUDA file, generating new hires, 940, 941s, W-2s. So the list goes on. We can even print the W-2 right from NAV. And I think I've got some 2017 data here. I can just do a quick print inside. Maybe I bought the forms from Office Depot and I just want to print them myself. That's fine. You can run the report to print them. You can also have them print right in the box. But you can use our GreenShades partner, who is doing this conversion to a PDF for you, and then they can give access to the employee's portal. The employee can go get their W-2s, again, electronic, favored over sort of a paperless environment. You can almost go totally paperless with this versions of payroll these days. So again, e-filing, there's no extra cost for any of those e-files, so you can go ahead and use those right out of the box. It's a wizard-based sort of functionality that allows you to generate your W-2s and your e-files, and it's going to prompt you to upload them to the government. So don't worry about, if the payroll couldn't do that, then they need they may not want to be considered a payroll company. So we certainly do all the regulatory stuff, including about 4,300 local taxes.
Good. Hey, David, just a time check, so that we allow some time for Q&A.
Yeah, we're just on that time, so that would have been my last sentence. So if you want to have any questions, then certainly we can get into that. And again, there's lots more we could cover in another demo if you're looking for one. But do you have any questions at the moment that you want to deal with? I don't see any in the question box. So.
We do have some questions.
What's that?
Okay.
We do have some questions.
Okay, good. Yeah, because I've just got a couple more slides, but let's tackle maybe some of the initial questions that have come up.
Okay. How many other companies are using this?
Yeah, so we've got several thousand companies across North America that have deployed our add-in to do NAB-based payroll. So most of the users are in North America. We do have some international deployments in Latin America and Middle East and elsewhere. But yeah, several thousand companies have deployed NAB-based payroll.
Okay. And what are the comparative costs for running payroll with NAV?
So great question, and it really, so the quick answer is it depends. It depends on the breadth of services that are being deployed as part of NAV and Vision Payroll, number of employees, maybe the number of pay controls, the different job types, number of locations. So I can tell you that if you look over a 3-year period, let's say after you've made the investments in the software and in the implementation, we've got companies that are that have deployed in-house payroll. They're probably spending much less than $4 per employee per month, and then that's providing full access to all the payroll and HR functionality that David touched on during the demo.
Okay, great, thank you. And one last question. One of the reasons we outsourced payroll was to remove the challenge of dealing with tax filings in-house. How does your payroll system handle this requirement?
David, you want to address that?
We're handling those through a wizard-based filing center. So we have an integration here that we can look at an employer. It's going to generate data right out of your NAV system, and it's going to create a file where you can actually use a wizard-based filing center here, and it's going to look and see what kind of files that you're able to, based on the data that came out of your system, it's going to present you with the different files that you're able to upload, depending whether you're doing your SUTA new hire. In this case, I've chosen to do some SUTA, so I can look and see, well, I've got several states as well, so I can select these different states, and we're going to go ahead and we can say next to that, and it's just going to build the files for us. And as we move along this filing, so I've got 1 employee and 2 employees, I can click to begin filing, and the wizard will guide you through what happens at the state level. So we'll get report totals through here. You can save the file through here. You can just choose to keep on going, and it's going to prompt you for log on to the Georgia state government. Some states allow us to upload the file directly. Other states' sites are kind of cut off for security reasons, so you'll have to open it in a separate browser. But all those states do it differently. So the sort of a wizard-based instructions gives you sort of a little less worry about. You don't have to think about how you're going to do this because the manual file instructions are helping you. So if I go to California, for example, I'm going to get a different set of filing instructions as I move through the wizard. A lot of them can be the same. The IRS, for example, it'll upload right there for you. It'll open the IRS website and you'll be able to upload it. Here it's actually asking you to send this thing to a zip folder because that's the way California wants it. And so these types of wizard prompts are how we're dealing with these things now. And they, like I said, they differ depending on what report you're doing, because some of these reports unfortunately have different requirements. And so that sort of limits the amount of thinking that you need to do.
Great. Angie, any other questions at this point?
No, not at this time. If anyone has any,
Okay.
please feel free to go ahead and type them into the question box so we can get them answered for you.
Yeah, so what I'll do is I'll go back to the slide presentation. So we should be good to go. So just to kind of wrap up our discussion, so again, this was meant to be kind of a introduction to NAB Based Payroll, and so the question comes up, why should you consider it? And I think for some of the things we've touched on today, some of the things that make the most sense is just having full control of the, one of the most important employer responsibilities that a company has. I think the integration with Dynamics NAV is a huge benefit. Having a direct tie to all the financials. You've got all consolidation of data, consolidation of what might have been multiple systems all coming into one. You've got complete insight to your business. You can do easy analytics or reporting. And if cost is an issue, I think long term, this winds up being for some companies a much better investment. Again, given the fact that a lot of the information and a lot of the work is already being done behind the firewall already. So there's a lot of good reasons to consider it. Vision Payroll as an add-in to Microsoft Dynamics NAV is built either as a perpetual license or offered as a subscription license. So we look at the number of employees that are going to be supported in the database for the payroll and HR functions, and so that's how it's broken. The licenses are broken out, by employee tiers. So it's the functionality is all the same. It's just with respect to the database and how that is going to be structured. So I think for the purposes of this presentation, I believe Innovia is asked today, if I can speak for Angie and members of the Innovia team, if there's some information that's been shared here today and you're interested in learning more, you're maybe intrigued by the prospect of running in-house payroll, and you see some of the benefits, or just want to explore more about it, or have a dialogue that maybe you haven't had yet, that I would urge you to contact Innovia for more information, and need be, they can engage us in a discussion and maybe do a deeper dive into the functionality of the software, based upon the unique situation that you or your business may have. So that's what I've got to share as far as information goes. Angie, are there any additional questions that might have come up?
No, there is not, Tony.
Okay, well then I'll let you wrap things up then.
Thank you everyone for attending our webinar today, and thank you Tony and David for presenting. It was very informative information. If anyone has additional questions and you would like to speak to us one-on-one, our contact information is on the screen. We look forward to seeing you at our next webinar. Tomorrow we will have Solo Globe presenting on Mind the Gap, the definitive ERP and WMS gap analysis. If you are interested in attending this webinar, please go to our website, innovia.com, and register for this webinar. Again, this webinar has been recorded and will be available on our website later this afternoon. We encourage you to share it with other colleagues who are interested in this topic, and we look forward to seeing you at our next webinar. Thank you everyone, and have a wonderful day.